Welcome to Awakening to Conscious Co-Creation with your host, Peter Tongue. This program will provide the groundwork you need to advance your awareness and be involved in the approaching transformation in consciousness. Now, your host, Peter Tongue.
Hello and welcome to Awakening to Conscious Co-Creation, and I'm your host, Peter Tongue. Thank you for joining us today. The intention in these episodes is to give you insights into how the planet is shifting in frequency and vibration to a new level of awareness, and how you can be part of this grand awakening. And boy, the energies this week have been pretty interesting and weird, and I'm really pleased to have my guest on the show today, Neil Kramer, who will give us an insight into these discordant energies and the polarities and what is happening in the world, and how we can actually transcend all of this trials and tribulations. So Neil, welcome to the show.
Hello Peter, thank you for having me.
So Neil, we first met down on the Assetti Ranch when I was down there with George Cavassalis just a few weeks ago, and we had a neat little introduction to each other. And I'm so pleased that you're joining me on the show, and I apologize to our listeners for our weird accents. Hopefully everybody can understand what we're talking about. But having had that visit to the ranch, what are your feelings about it?
Well, I think it's a great centre for sharing spiritual knowledge and for people exchanging narratives, for learning, and for good sort of energy recharge, basically. I've been very impressed with it. I've been there a few times now. And I have a workshop actually coming up this weekend.
Oh, that's great timing. Tell us about
right
it.
There. Yeah. Well, it's I mean, the place is essentially a learning centre as far as I'm concerned. And the kind of conversation and the quality of people who go there is very, very high. I was very impressed with it. I only first went there myself a few months ago. And fundamentally, I think that, of course, the place is recognised and is renowned for its UFO activity, because that area of the Pacific Northwest is quite high in terms of UFOs and so on, and sightings and experiences and accounts and so on. And yet, specifically, the Mount Adams region seems to have an awful lot of activity, and that is just proven night after night, quite frankly. So just on the first night, we saw all kinds of very, very fascinating and curious things. So it's a great place, great people. James and the team up there just do a fantastic job, and it's just a really, really valuable resource. So, yeah, I love it.
And what's your sense of the light phenomena that take place there?
Well, it's funny. There's so many different ways to approach that, to look at things physically, to say, what is that in the sky, or what is that in the trees? What is this kind of aurora-type effect that comes from the mountains sometimes? You and I sat together looking at lights on the mountain that were too far away to be anything other than something extraordinary, shall we say, because they were so luminous, so powerful.
Absolutely.
That it goes beyond pretty much anything that somebody could carry up there. And we were looking at sheer rock face, and there's lights coming out of the mountain and floating around. So, yeah, it's a fascinating place, and I just think perhaps I can begin to answer that question a little later, because that definitely takes us into the grounds of multidimensionality and what level of the sort of hologram you're looking at, really.
And so, what are you doing in the workshop?
Well, the workshop is called Walking the Sacred Path, and essentially it's a sort of weekend experiential workshop. So there's a lot of sharing of knowledge. There's some, obviously, seminars from myself. There's some group participation. The main idea of it is to share and understand and transmit what I call the inner work, which is really a process of kind of mental purification, of psychic charge, of spiritual philosophy, and of gnosis. So it's my particular fusion of those things and this kind of unfoldment that is taking place in people's lives, how we can sort of synthesize that and put it into some sort of workable, understandable, effective process, like a spiritual practice. So really that's what it's about. It's about discovery, and it's about the discipline of focus, and about the sort of fascination of all the things that brings to being when you do start to shift your consciousness from a purely three-dimensional level to a slightly higher one, all the things that become possible and all the different rules that start to bend a little bit. So that's what the workshop's about. There's many, many fascinating things involved in that.
Bending the rules, I like that. So if anybody wants to go, how do they make contact? How do they connect?
The best thing and easiest thing to do, if you go to neilkramer.com, and you'll see on the right-hand side there's like a little graphic that says Neil Kramer Walking the Sacred Path Workshop. Click on that. It'll take you to a PDF with all the details on. You can, contact the organisers from there, and it's all very straightforward.
Great, thank you. And also on that journey down with George Kavasilis to the Assetti Ranch when we were driving together, he told me in the car that this guy Neil Kramer, who I didn't yet know, this guy Neil Kramer explains the mind control matrix better than anybody that I know. So that's why you're on the show. No, not at all. But just tell us a bit about that.
Well, that's very kind of George, first of all. I must send him that money in the post. No, it's... I think everybody brings something to the table in terms of what skills they have and what uniqueness they resonate in who they are, essentially. And for me, my journey began quite early. And I think a lot of people who do that start from a position of analysis and of philosophy and of scrutiny. And being a Virgo, I have this meticulous impulse sometimes, which is not always my best friend. But in terms of writing and analysis, it can certainly be handy because it gives me some sort of degree of penetration when I'm looking at a particular issue. I can get to the heart of it quite quickly. And in my journey, in my knowing, in my practice, it became obvious to me very early on that the kind of blanket ignorance in the general public, in the mainstream population, was unnatural. And if somebody is sensitive and is philosophically inclined and is spiritually attuned, it's a very strange thing to look around and wonder why it is that nobody's really interested in life, why nobody's really wanting to look under the surface and get to what is real and get to where the origins of things are and what that means. Nobody's really interested in that. It's a very peculiar realization. And I saw that very early, in my teens, really. But rather than become indignant or disappointed or disgruntled about it, the first idea was, well, why is that? Why are so many people kind of choosing to be asleep? And that's something that differentiates me from other people who comment on these subjects, in that I don't think they're just asleep because they don't know. My feeling is that people choose to slumber. They choose to put their consciousness into a very low gear. And my realization was that it's a very much a protective mechanism that people do when they're not sure if they're capable of dealing with ultimate reality, with the world as it really is. And in that sense, it's kind of like a kind of psychic hibernation where people say, look, I don't want to talk about weird stuff. I'm not really interested in phenomena. I'm not really interested in supernatural elements. I'm not interested in transcendence and the unknown and the mysterious, because I am in psychic hibernation as a protective mechanism. And what I discovered was that process is quite natural, and all of us do it from time to time, sometimes throughout the day, sometimes throughout the month or the years or whatever, but it's something we come in and out of quite naturally. What I found was that process can be sort of artificially stimulated and prolonged, and when that happens, it's effectively putting people not just into a slumber but into a coma, effectively. And that is not a natural process. It's a very synthetic process, and it's part of a technique and a device that I call the construct, which is